Hi, welcome to our Behdini Beginners course. This is class number 7, and we're going to be working on lesson 3 of our blue textbook, book A, starting in section A. I'll work through the Dahuki textbook this time. It's on page 43. Taxis. So in this lesson, we're going to be working on imperatives. And for this, I'm going to let you work through this with your audio recordings so you get that good native speaker input. Some of these you'll notice are not your particular dialect. So down here at the bottom, Zaholis, they say Besekina for stop. Dahukis say Rawasta. You need to learn both of these words because if you ever travel to the other city and you get a taxi driver from the other city, they might not know Rawasta or they might not know Besekina. So you need to learn both of those. Page 44, conversation. Again, I'm going to let you work through this with your audio recordings so you get that good native speaker input. When you get down to this part here, you can make substitutions. Anytime you see something that's bolded and underlined, you're going to make substitutions. So get your dictionary out, get your vocabulary cards out, find your lists. In this case, your list of numbers, just change it as you go through the conversation the second time. Change it from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Part 2, it's more conversation. As you do these, use your hands. When you say rastara, go straight, use your hands to indicate you're going straight ahead. And in real life, when you get in a taxi, some of them don't know their left from their right. So I almost always gently gesture to show turn left, turn right, go straight ahead, so that they're not confused and so they don't have to ask. Practice these conversations over and over. Listen to them with the audio recordings. Say them out loud, one phrase at a time. If you are doing language learning with another expat, practice with them. Definitely practice with your language helper. And then obviously make good use of this when you actually go in a taxi. And one of the important things about riding in a taxi is this very first phrase. Sometimes the taxi drivers won't say "Bkhair hati" to you when you get into their taxi, but that's because they think that you don't know Kurdish. So if they do say "Bkhair hati" to you, be sure and answer "Khairan darbi," because that's polite. And to be fair to the taxi driver, wait until you get into the taxi. Wait for him to say "Bkhair hati" before you start giving instructions about where you want to go. That way you. In section C, again, I'm going to let you work with the audio recordings. All these audio recordings are found from the link on page 2 in this textbook. You can work through part 2 with a friend. Each take turns saying the words. In section D, which is your vocabulary, all of this is recorded for you. Listen and repeat. Listen and repeat. And then as you're memorizing your vocabulary, if you have a hard time memorizing these lists of vocabulary, just use the flashcards that are available from the link on page 1 of this textbook, or make your own. If you make your own, be sure you spell things right. Be sure you get your hats On your vowels, be sure you get your hooks on your S's and your C's. These are very important. So if you write your own, make sure you spell things correctly and copy things correctly so you learn correctly. Take it, 10 minutes at a time. 10 minutes of vocabulary learning in the morning, 10 minutes at night. You'll get it. When you get over to the bottom and you get to this part here, harasike, you can make substitutions with these nouns that are marked with asterisks. So you can practice different places. Hafle, and you have to put the E with a hat on the ending because this is an oblique case ending, which we haven't gotten to yet, but just follow this model. So because seek is a feminine noun, in this context, you're going to say sike. So do that for all of these that are marked with asterisks because they're all feminine nouns. So hara hafle, hara male, hara khizane, hara madrase, hara trafike, hara zonkwe. And then there are different ways to tell your taxi driver to go up or to go down. You don't have to learn all of them. I would recommend you learn these two that are in bold print. But you might want to learn to understand all of them in case someone else says to you, hara avrazi. If you can understand it without having to say it yourself, then you'll know it means to go up a hill. The prepositions on the next page, prepositions are really different from English. So this just takes time. Notice that in the Tehuki book, ta means to or until, whereas Zahulis would say heta. Two different contexts for using this preposition. Wada sa'adu ta say, so come from 2 o'clock until 3 o'clock. And Zahulis would say bu instead of ta or heta. Then this ending, this is an oblique case ending. We'll get to that later. Male. And this is sort of like, it's still, in English, we think of it as a preposition. Go to home or go at home. We don't say it that way in English, but that sort of has that meaning. Go to school. It's not written as a separate word. It's just written as this oblique case ending on this noun. And the same is true for E, for masculine nouns. Shul is a masculine noun. Now the pronoun from, je, this is sometimes pronounced sh. So instead of saying je verrai, it's probably going to end up sounding like shvere. And instead of saying je vais from her, it's going to end up sounding like shwe. Shteka ho, shui. So we write it with a j, but we pronounce it with a sh. The pronoun nick is a great pronoun to learn because it means to or with, and it's a very safe pronoun to say if you say deaf, say deaf, that means to or with also. But it can, if you say it in the wrong context, it can have a sexual meaning, which you don't want to imply. So if you want to say to someone, come with me, it's always safe to say Nick. Nick is the better one to use. Weta, Nick, Min. I'm not saying it's wrong to say deaf. I'm just saying it could be misunderstood. So if in doubt, say Nick. Then section E, do this with your language helper or the audio recordings. Okay, let's jump into the grammar here. Section F. This is on page 48. Part 1, imperatives. In lesson 1, we learned that Kurdish verbs have two parts, an infinitive and an imperative. The infinitive is listed first in the dictionary and is separated from the imperative by a comma. So the imperative of the verb zivarin bzivra is bzivra. And so the infinitive is listed first. The imperative is listed second. I need to make that change. Let me just make myself a note here. Again, remember, it's important to learn the verb as a whole when you memorize vocabulary, not just one part of the verb. Verbs, which are imperatives, people call them commands, have an unspoken you, du or hin, as the subject. The subject is not usually spoken and is therefore shown in parentheses. Rawasta, you would say. You wouldn't usually say du rawasta. So here's our unspoken subject. Now let's look at this verb come. The verb to come has two imperatives. Behe for dehukis or be for zachois, and weta. The verb that is in parentheses, this one, is the imperative that you're going to use for commands. The other one, this one, is the one that you're going to later use to make negative commands or present tense verbs. There are 4 verbs or base verbs that have 2 imperatives. So just remember that if you're given commands, you use the last one, which is written in parentheses. This is all audio recorded for you, but let's just go over some of these together. So, weta, you, one person, come, weta. You're going to say it to more than one person. You're going to say wedden. This ending on it. Now, if you want to say don't come, okay, for the hookies, you say na he for one person, or nahin for two people. For zachois, you say na'e or na'ain. Back to the Dehookie screen. Now I've lined up my sentences so all the weta is lined up on the right so that you can see the kind of sentences where weta comes last. For example, ka weta, and that's a very common way of talking to someone that you're in a room with or a house with or something, and you say, come here to me, like to a child or even to an adult, ka weta, come here to me, ka weta. Now, if someone says, de weta, that's very insistent. It doesn't have anything to do with the future tense. It's a way of insisting. De weta. And then whenever you have a word that's bolded, you can make substitutions. So instead of saying come tomorrow, you can look up other words in your dictionary like come tomorrow morning or come on Thursday, like that. And you can put those different substitutions in there. If you want to say come quickly, Z or zika weta. If you want to say a day of the week, come on Friday, Chitbe, or inie, or you can change it to Monday, Dushanbe. And in that case, that on Dushanbe, normally that day, the B is silent, but it ceases to be silent when you modify it with the A ending, which gives it the meaning on. On. This makes it say on that day. Or you could say, come next year, Sala Beit Weta. Instead of saying year, you could say month, Heva Beit Weta. Sa'at Se Weta, come at 3 o'clock. You can change the say to another time. Sa'at Ek Weta, Sa'at Dah Weta, Sa'at Duzda, or Sa'at Dwazda Weta. You can change your number to get the time that you want. Now this one down here, Ibtilecho Weta, Ibtilecho Weta, Ibtilecho Weta. Really, this means come whenever you want to. It's a very loose translation, but it has this meaning, and you'll hear it a lot. So you can learn to say it too. Now on the right, I've lined up all the commands where weta is the first word in the sentence. So you get the idea of when to say it that way. Come back, weta va. Weta jurva, come inside. Weta dehuke. You can substitute different city names. If you're going to say Erbil, you're going to say Hauler. Weta haulere, come to Erbil. Here you can substitute pronouns. Weta mala min, you could say Weta mala we, come to his house, like if you're already over at his house. Weta mala we or Weta mala we. Come with them. Again, you can make substitutions here. Use oblique case pronouns. this is what I talked about in the last lesson. Wada nik min. This is the safe way to say come to me. You can say wada daf min. And when the context is very clear that it means come to my home, okay, you can say it. But what a deaf man is what husbands say to their wives when they want to make love to them. So that's a very important thing to know. So what a nickman is always a safe thing to say. On the next page, you substitute similar words for the bolded words. So instead of saying sabahi, tomorrow, you could say seisba weda, come 3 days from now. So you make substitutions, check them with your language helper, and then read them aloud. Down here, you change the imperatives as indicated, and then you practice the new sentences. You can check your answers in Appendix S in your red book. Translate the sentence, check your answers, use the audio recordings, listen, and write the missing words. And also your answers for all of that just comes from this section up here. Even if you don't understand the grammar of how to make it say don't come, you can just memorize it from here. And later we'll get to the specifics of how to actually do it. Or how to make it plural, for example. Just memorize it for now. You'll see the patterns and then you can understand the grammar when we go over that. Okay, now let's look at page 50 and look at the verb go. So the verb go, like come, also has two imperatives, bicha and hara. Hara is the one that you're going to use for giving commands. And bicha you'll use to form the negative command, or you can just memorize it here. Okay, so hara, one person, hara, go or go away. Haran, you're talking to more than one person, like all the little children that you want to go away from you when you're in the market. Haran. And if you want to tell your friend, don't go, nacha, nacha. And again, this is taken from bicha. If you're talking to more than one person, like to a whole family, nachin, nachin. Or if they've already gone once and you don't want them to go again, nachinava. And this ending here is unique to Dahuk. Sakhalis don't say that. They just say nachinva. Again, use your audio recordings to go through all of these. Listen, repeat, listen, repeat, listen, repeat. Pause the audio recordings as often as you need to so that you can hear it clearly and then practice saying it. If you don't practice saying it, you won't learn it. If you do practice saying it, you will learn it. And then just go over it and over it and over it again. Again, make substitutions. Instead of saying duzba 2 days from now, say seisba or charba. Siba, tomorrow. On Saturday, shambiye, on Saturday. Substitute and say ek shambe hara or du shambe hara. Again, here we have the safe way of saying go with him. Hara nikwi. If you say hara dafwi, it has that sexual connotation. So it's always safe to say hara nikwi. Again, practice writing some substitutions, change the imperatives, check your answers in Appendix S, Translate the sentences, check your answers in Appendix S, listen to the audio recordings, write the missing words. All right. Page 52, part 4, Bezivra, make a U-turn. All right, this verb has several meanings. It means to make a U-turn. It means to return, to come back, to turn around. If you make it negative, it's nazivra or nazivrin. Work with your audio recordings on this. Now in part 5, this explains how to negate the imperatives. To negate an imperative, you drop the be or the bi from the imperative and you add na, and it's written separately. If the imperative begins with anything else, don't drop anything. So let's work with bezivra. So you drop the be or the bi. So here's the bi. We're going to drop that. And then we're going to add na, and it's written separately. Na zivra. The imperative of the zacho verb below is actually lehivia min biba. Biba is shortened to ba because of its familiar or casual nature, and this is common. So then if you're going to negate it, you don't have to drop anything because it's already been omitted, and you just add na. Lehivia min naba. To make imperatives plural, bottom of page 52. So when you want to tell or ask more than one person to do something, you must make the imperative plural. To do so, you drop the from the imperative and you add in or n. If the imperative ends in any other vowel, do not drop the vowel. So again, let's work with bezivra. Here's our So we drop that and we add in instead. And then you're talking to more than one person. All you people over there, turn around. Bezivrin. Page 53, substitute similar words. Check your answers in Appendix S or with your language helper. Practice saying them aloud. Change the imperatives as indicated. You can check with the appendix for some suggestions, but you can also make changes with your language helper. Practice saying them aloud. Translate the sentences, listen and write the missing words. Use your audio recordings. Check your answers in Appendix S. Part 7, page 54. This is the Dehuki verb, the Dehuki book that I'm looking at. Ho lehibi amin bigara. Wait for me. So you want to tell a taxi driver, your taxi driver takes you someplace, you want to pop out for 2 minutes, and you want that taxi driver to wait for you. So first of all, don't give that taxi driver any money, and he will wait for you. If you pay him, it's likely he won't wait for you. So if you tell him, Ho lehibi amin bigara, wait for me, and you're just gone a minute or two, you can pay him a little bit extra when you do finally pay him at the end, and he'll wait for you happily. So here's your verb, your imperative. Ho l'hibya min bigara, or ho min bigara. That means wait for me. If you're just going to say wait, you can say ho bigara. Work with your audio recordings, practice all of these. And then when you get down here, be sure and make some substitutions of numbers so that you practice saying wait 2 minutes or wait 10 minutes. You don't do anything special to the number, you just change the number. Binge is 5, do is 2, da is 10. Now, the Zacholis, they don't use that verb to say wait. They say Lhiviominba. And again, people that live in Dahuk, you need to learn this phrase so that when you go to Zaho and you're working with Zaho taxi drivers, this is what you say to them. They may not understand the other, and vice versa. If you live in Zaho and you go to Dahuk, you need to learn the Dahuki way of saying it. Page 55, we have two different ways of saying stop. So in Dahuk, you say rawasta. In Zaho, you say bisakana. Learn both of these words and use them when you're in that city. Otherwise, your bus may not stop if you say bisakana and you're in Dahuk until somebody explains to the bus driver what you're trying to say. Okay, so practice with your audio recordings. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Practice with your audio recordings. Practice with your language helper. Write your missing words. And then part 9, practice making sentences using your Appendix H imperatives chart. Looks like this. And you have all those strips that are bilingual. Remember that the subject is usually not spoken. Sorry. The subject is usually not spoken. So you're not usually going to say tu or hin. You're just going to say the imperative. Bija, bida. So practice with your chart, Appendix H, in your red book, your book B. Practice over and over and over again. Make up all sorts of different sentences. You might want to write some of them down. Say them to your language helper. And don't work on the polite imperatives at this time. That's something that we'll get to much later. Then if you want, you can go on and look at part 10 just for your information. Imperatives from the scripture, different ways of using what we say come in English. You'll see they have whole bunches of ways of saying this. Now, of course, when it's written, they're going to have these funny things, duiv instead of div or duv. They use nick instead of duff. The more you see how prepositions are used in real contexts, the easier it will be for you to learn these prepositions. Prepositions are a little tricky and it takes practice. So don't shy away from them. Just try to get as many contexts as you can to learn how to use them. Talking with your language helper, talking with your neighbor, reading things like the scriptures. And then in part 11, you have these review phrases from Izafe. So highlight or put a box around the Izafe phrases like this one. So re, ga, kro. And your Izafe ending is the ah here. So you can do these, check them with your Appendix S in the red book. And write some Izafe phrases of your own. Here's the Izafe chart. and then we'll start here with the next lesson. So hope that that's helpful to you. These imperatives take time to learn, so don't be discouraged. Work hard at it. Check things with your language helper and your neighbors. And every time you get in a taxi, be sure and use as much Kurdish as you possibly can. So prepare ahead of time before you get in your taxi. Think about where you want to go, write some things out, put them on 3x5 cards, stick them in your pocket, and then when you get in the taxi, read it if you have to, that's fine. Be sure and gesture with your hands if you mean go straight ahead or turn right or turn left. And that'll help you to communicate well with your taxi driver. And the more you use real Kurdish with real Kurds, and the less English you use, the easier it'll get for you to speak Kurdish and to leave the English behind. So hang in there with everything. Again, if you have any questions, just email me or message me, and I'm happy to try to help you with that. Have a great day. Work hard. Bye.